Being able to roll and rescue your kayak are both really important kayaking skills, but unfortunately most people don't spend enough time learning these things to make them truly reliable in real-world capsize situations. Fortunately, there's a way to keep your kayak upright that's easy to learn and takes very little energy. It's called the Reflexive Low Brace. A Reflexive Low Brace is probably your single best investment for something that you can put energy into that's really going to give back to your paddling experience. First, a quick word on bracing. This is a high brace, and this is a low brace. In a high brace, your hands roll back to present the paddle flat to the water. Now this is typically used in a situation where you're a lot closer to the water, whether that's a wave coming up to meet you, or whether you're very late in a capsize and you need to brace. A low brace, on the other hand, your hands roll forward to present the paddle flat to the water. And this is typically used when you're more upright and just starting to capsize. We're used to thinking of braces as things that we need to do when the kayak starts to capsize. The problem with that is, if you have to think about it, it's already too late. For any brace to be effective, it has to be something that your body does automatically in response to feeling your kayak start to tip over. But the only way to train your body to get that response is to practice it in the same way you would be performing it in a real-life bracing scenario. Now, any brace has 4 components, and the first one just happens automatically. You feel yourself tipping over, and then you slap the water, push off, and slice up out of the water. Once again, that's tipping past your balance point, slapping the water, pushing up off the water, and slicing out of the water. Now, what happens if you forget that last part? Well, this is what happens. And now you have a great opportunity to practice your roll. So it's really important to get that slice coming out of the water. Now your brain's natural response to this scenario looks something like this. You start to tip over, and then as soon as you cross your balance point, your brain goes into panic mode and you start to spaz out. And that's why you tip over in a kayak. And what you need to do is train your response to become this. You feel yourself start to tip over, you cross your balance point, and bam, you hit that reflexive low brace. Slice up out of the water. Now I know that a lot of instructors teach this with the slap and slice being one continuous forward motion, but the reason that I choose to do it with the slightly harder version where you slap and then you turn your hand 90 degrees and slice out is because this gives you an additional tool that's going to work for you in partially capsized situations where your blade is already buried in the water before you realize what's going on. In that kind of scenario, if you've learned this as an automatic reflex, what will happen is it will kick in and you will know instantly to push and then slice up out of the water. Whereas with a slap slice, there wouldn't really be a reflex there to deal with that circumstance and you would just continue to capsize. Now it doesn't matter what kind of paddle you're using for this. I'm using a Greenland paddle, but a European paddle works exactly the same way. The elements are always the same. You tip past your balance point, you slap the water, you push off the water, and then you slice up out of the water. You tip past your balance point, you slap the water, you push up out of the water, and then you slice out of the water. So that all seems pretty easy, right? So we have to ask ourselves why so few people have effective reflexive low braces. And that just comes down to one thing, and that is fear of tipping over. Basically, when most people are practicing their bracing skills, whether it's on their own or whether it's in a class, they're usually not actually committing past their balance point. And so what you see is someone that looks like they're doing a brace, but they're not actually bracing because they're just sitting right on their edge and then reaching out and slapping the water. For this to become a reflex, you have to cross your balance point. Now, another thing that's really important while you're practicing is to make sure that you wait until you actually cross your balance point before you roll your hands forward to slap the water. Because what you're trying to do here is train an automatic reflex. And if you're already practicing with your paddle flat to the water, then you're not doing anything to train that part of the reflex. I really want to recommend that you either know how to roll or you work with a spotter when you're first learning this, because I feel like if you don't have that additional margin of safety, you're not going to feel truly comfortable to tip past your balance point. Now, once you've learned how to do it, there's really no substitute for just practicing. Every time you're just hanging out with friends or just sitting still on the water, instead of just sitting there, you can be throwing gentle little reflexive low braces to either side. And what'll happen is over time, your brain is going to build this pathway and it's going to reinforce and it's going to reinforce. And then suddenly the day is going to come where either you're out in really hairy conditions, or you're in the surf, or maybe you're just not paying attention. And all of a sudden you'll find yourself capsizing and bam, you hit an automatic low brace. And that is such a eureka moment when you realize that your body knows how to keep you upright. Now, interestingly, a reflexive low brace isn't just good for preventing accidental capsizes, it actually really helps with your maneuvering strokes as well. Knowing that you have a reflexive low brace there to save you if you need it really helps you commit to getting the kayak far up on edge so you can carve those really tight edge turns. With a reflexive low brace, you're going to be able to avoid so many of those scenarios where we start to see failed rolls and bungled rescues and just so many of the things that happen in real life capsize scenarios. Now, does that mean that you don't have to learn the rest of the stuff? Absolutely not. You want to have as many tools in your kayaking toolkit as possible. But with a reflexive low brace, you can keep yourself from tipping upside down where it's wet and it's dark and it's cold and there's water going up your nose and there's sharks and flesh-eating bacteria and angry frogmen and kaiju. I think that's all I have to say on low bracing for right now, so if you like what you saw here, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Also, think about heading over to the Cape Falcon website where I've got a ton more videos on building skin-on-frame kayaks and Greenland paddles and just kayaking in general. By making a purchase or making a donation, it really helps to support what I do, helps me make more videos just like this one. Take care, have fun paddling your kayak, and be safe on the water.